With the release of the new Fairy Tail 100 Year Quest anime and the recent ending of the Eden Zero manga, I wanted to take a trip down memory lane and revisit Hiro Mashima's greatest hits. So I decided to go back and reread the entirety of his most popular series. That's right, I spent a whole week reading over 1,000 chapters of Mashima's best work. In doing so, I was reminded of how much I love his original masterpiece. Before there was the iconic Fairy Tail or the fresh Eden Zero, there was the innovative Rave Master. And by looking at the title of my video, you can probably tell how I feel it compares to his other works. Now, if you look at Mashima's Wikipedia page, you'll see that he's written quite a few things. And honestly, I haven't read all of them. Like, if you asked me what Monster Soul is about, I couldn't tell you. So can I definitely say that Rave Master is his best work? Probably not. But in comparison to Fairy Tail and Eden Zero, I wholeheartedly believe that Rave Master stands on top. And here's why. Also, minor spoilers for all three series that I'll be talking about in this video. I won't be going into specific details such as character deaths or plot twists, but since I'll be comparing all three series, I will be mentioning some relevant plot points. So do not continue if you don't want spoilers of any kind. 50 years ago, the demon stone called Darkbring threatened the world with its powers of darkness. To save mankind, the first Rave Master wielded the sacred stone Rave and its powers of light to combat that evil. However, their climactic battle resulted in the disastrous explosion known as Overdrive, which destroyed 1/10 of the world and allowed the Darkbring to escape. Sounds like a pretty significant event that everyone should know about, right? Well, not our protagonist, Haru Glory. Having spent his whole life on the secluded garage island, Haru was unaware of this part of history. Now, does it make sense for someone living in this world to not know about such a traumatic event? No, not really. But narratively, this allows us to experience this new and exciting world alongside our optimistic and ignorant protagonist. Without getting into too much detail, Haru is eventually deemed the second Rave Master, and alongside an amnesiac girl named Ellie, he must set out to finally defeat the Darkbring and save the world. We get to follow their journey in this lively and colorful world filled with creative magic, wacky creatures, and twisted villains. Each location that the main cast visits is filled with its own culture, challenges, and history. From the serene garage island to the bustling city of Punk Street, each setting feels unique and adds depth to the story. Mashima also does a great job of blending magical elements with technology. The weapons and gadgets we encounter throughout the series are imaginative and contribute to the world's quirkiness. For example, I love Haru's 10 Commandment sword. It's a super simple concept, but what's more badass than a sword that can change forms? It allows for some pretty creative solutions, and it's more entertaining than watching a protagonist spam the same move over and over again. But I would say my favorite aspect of the world building in Rave Master is the history and mythology that Mashima beautifully crafted. Besides the lore involving the ancient war between the Ravestones and the Darkbring, the story behind the Symphonia and Rare Groove Kingdoms was something that kept me captivated throughout the whole series. I enjoyed seeing how their conflict persisted throughout the decades and how it shaped the world within Rave Master. To be honest, I think world building is one of Mashima's stronger skills, and he does it well in most of his series. Sure, there are things I can nitpick and critique, like I would love to know more about the 10 Wizard Saints in Fairy Tail, the Heavenly Knights from Eden Zero, or even the Demon Kings from Rave Master. But overall, I would say that Mashima does a great job of making his worlds feel magical and full of life. Now here's where I think Rave Master starts to make itself stand out in regards to Mashima's other works. I think one of the key advantages that Rave Master has over a series like Fairy Tail is its clear and focused narrative goal. From the beginning, Haru's mission is defined. He needs to collect the missing pieces of Rave, destroy the Darkbring, and save the world. This clear objective provides a strong narrative drive and a sense of purpose throughout the series. In contrast, Fairy Tail has a much more open-ended plot. The early portion of the story is mostly the main crew taking on various jobs, going on fun adventures, and saving some people in the process. And while I think this type of storytelling is actually pretty fun, the lack of a central mission can make the story feel a little less cohesive at times. There were points where it felt like Mashima didn't know where he wanted to go with the story. I read online they intended Fairy Tail to end much earlier, but continued on due to its popularity. I can't confirm whether this is 100% true or not, but it definitely felt that way at certain times. And then there was the repetitiveness as well. Each arc introduces new enemies and challenges, but the overall direction can feel formulaic. The main crew typically encounters a big bad, gets defeated at first, uses the power of friendship to overcome them, and then there's a 50-50 chance that the villain gets redeemed. Now, if you read Rave Master, I'm sure you can actually make the same argument against that series as well. But I think what helps Rave Master stay engaging and exciting are its overarching story and the subplots along the way. Plot elements like the quest to find Ellie's memories and the mystery surrounding Haru's father kept me engaged and curious. I found myself constantly clicking through to the next chapter because I was dying to have all my questions answered. And then when one would be answered, 2 more would pop up to take its place. These subplots add layers of depth to the main narrative and kept the story exciting, regardless of them using the power of friendship to defeat the arc's villain. Another thing that Rave Master handles exceptionally well is the concept of time travel. Unlike many stories where time travel is used as a deus ex machina, Rave Master uses it as an interesting way to tell a story. The time travel elements are woven into the narrative in a way that feels natural and purposeful, avoiding the massive plot holes that often plague time travel stories. In comparison, Eden Zero tends to overuse time manipulation. It's made clear early on in Eden Zero that time would be heavily focused in the series, with even the narrator telling us not to treat it as normal when reading the story. But it sometimes felt like a crutch used to resolve plot issues, and it definitely made the story lose some tension. But in Rave Master, it's used sparingly and everything is intertwined so nicely. Mashima didn't use it to magically fix issues, but to create amazing twists. And my god, the twists in this story. I kid you not, the reveal behind who this mysterious skeleton is has got to be one of the greatest surprises in all of anime and manga. Regardless of the hundreds of series I've read and watched, very few have had a moment as impactful as this. All of the twists in Rave Master are built up gradually, making their payoffs incredibly satisfying. And the last thing I want to mention in this section is fanservice. While there is fanservice in Rave Master, Mashima really cranks this up to 11 in his following series. I don't think there was a single arc that went by in Eden Zero where the female characters didn't have their clothes disintegrated. The amount of fanservice has always been a major critique in Mashima's works, but is probably the least apparent in Rave Master. So while this whole video is just my opinion, what I'm going to talk about next probably reflects the most bias. But out of all 3 main characters, I definitely find Haru the most enjoyable and best written. When comparing Haru to Natsu and Shiki, it's clear that they all share the common shonen protagonist mold. They are kind, brave, and fiercely protective of their friends. However, I believe that Haru undergoes the most significant development among them. Like I said earlier, Haru starts off as a rather ignorant character, sheltered from the world's realities due to his upbringing on Garage Island. However, this ignorance initially makes him a blank slate, allowing him to grow throughout the series. When Haru first leaves Garage Island, many of his ideals and principles are based on what his sister taught him. Early in the story, he would often say, "My sister taught me this," or "My sister said this." But as the story progresses, we see Haru develop into a person with his own beliefs and values. For example, in the beginning of the story, he was adamant against killing, even against those that deserved it. But by the end of the story, he comes to terms with the fact that it's sometimes unavoidable. And then there's also his evolving feelings in regards to his father. We see throughout the story that Haru faces an inner conflict as he tries to come to terms with his father leaving him and decide whether or not he could be trusted. Overall, Haru is my favorite of the 3 main characters because he feels the most relatable and realistic. As for the supporting cast, I feel like Rave Master has the most developed side characters. In both Fairy Tail and Eden Zero, the cast is so large that many characters feel thrown by the wayside and we rarely see them interact with each other. For example, in Eden Zero, despite the crew constantly saying how much they love each other and how they're a family, I feel like we don't really see it. Like, there's a clear divide between the team consisting of Shiki, Rebecca, Weiss, and Hamura, the team consisting of Laguna, Jin, and his sister, and the team that protects the ship. We don't really see the team composition change, nor do we get a lot of downtime on the ship where the characters can just interact with each other. And my biggest problem is that it often feels like Mashima forces their backstories into some arcs to give the characters some relevance to the current storyline. Again, look at Eden Zero. I don't want to go into too much detail, but I feel like Jin's and his sister's backstory was just thrown into the Foresta arc for no reason. It didn't really have any build-up, nor did it have a payoff. In Rave Master, however, the side characters feel well developed and like a family. Their backstories are expanded upon, and their character arcs come full circle. Whether it's relationships within the crew like Jet and Julia, or outside relationships like Musica and Reina, all are well thought out and executed. Now, onto what I think is the biggest difference maker between Rave Master and the other series. When I read Rave Master, I feel like there are some emotional stakes. One of the biggest critiques of a series like Fairy Tail is the lack of tension. You never have to worry about Erza losing or Grey dying. It's almost a given that the good guys will win without losing anyone. And if you guys have read the last arc of Eden Zero, then you know what happens there. Now this isn't me saying that a story needs death for it to be good. If anything, needless character deaths can hurt the story more than help it. But when done well, it can make a long-lasting impact that sticks with the audience for years. Rave Master excels in this aspect, providing moments that are genuinely heart-wrenching and special. I can't even begin to tell you the number of tears I've shed for this story. The series has some of the most iconic and emotional scenes in all of anime and manga. The deaths in Rave Master are not just shock value, they serve a purpose. Each loss drives the characters forward and adds weight to their journey. And finally, I just want to say, despite how much I love this series, I'm one of the first to admit that it's not perfect. At the end of the day, all three series were written by the same author and face some common pitfalls. While I love the weapons and power systems that Mashima creates, most of his fights end way too quickly. I feel like the majority of fights in Rave Master ends within 1 or 2 chapters. Rather than a quick fight where the villain dominates the first half, and then the good guys come back to win the second half, an extended battle with some back and forth would be a lot more enjoyable. Another common issue across Mashima's works is his tendency to struggle with sticking the landing. While the endings themselves aren't necessarily bad, they often feel rushed or lacking proper resolution. While the final arc of Rave Master was exciting, it left much to be desired in terms of fleshing out the final villains. These antagonists could have been given more depth and backstory to make the climax more impactful and satisfying. But even with his imperfections, I still believe that Rave Master is Hiro Mashima's best work. It being old and having some problems doesn't overshadow its engaging world building, compelling characters, and emotional depth. Maybe it's just my nostalgia talking, but it just hits me in a different way than Fairy Tail and Eden Zero. Let me know down in the comments which one of Mashima's works is your favorite. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of anime and manga. Until next time, peace.